Bo and Libby, who run the Republican club, the women's club, he actually asked a very pointed question to Merck. He asked him, because Merck happens to be a multimillionaire, would you put your assets in a private trust if you were to win the congressional seat? He proceeds to be like, well, no, actually, I want to get to this other person's question that was just SMA. I'm like, is he crazy? This is actually an ethics question about whether or not you are suitable to serve at the federal legislative level. And this is the one question you want to dodge?
Wait. Donald James and other people that have come on, Peter is referring to, he came this evening. He lives in the Panhandle now. He was at the Women's Republican Club meeting and got to meet a bunch of the Republican candidates that are running to fill Matt Gaetz' seat. So the people that he's talking about are Republican candidates in the primary for Matt Gaetz' congressional seat.
Correct.
That's it. Well, because there's been like a lot of people have come in and someone said, where was Pete at? So I'm just, yeah.
Thank you, Teresa. And thank you, guys. If you all haven't shared and liked, please do. Jen and I are running solo tonight, but you know what? It's actually a night where just Jen and I is actually pretty good because we've got a lot to cover. Just Jen. And of course, this was something that I thought was important. The problem, Ray J, is that Gaetz in many ways is like a tragic figure because he's such a slime ball, and yet he really was a representative that didn't take the corporate filth, and he actually voted consistently well on a number of key issues. But that's the problem. We live in a country where even the people that are trying to do right are always going to let you down. Like there's so few that actually did. And listen, I got their small speeches. I took a number of video clips. We're going to turn that into something because I got them all talking. Some of them stood out above the rest.
It's like, guys, we really are getting like firsthand information about Gaetz's replacement just because of the fact that you live there. It's kind of funny.
It is most likely going to be Jimmy Petronis. The Donald endorsed him, so naturally he's going to be in favor. Okay. But
what do you think of him?
Petronis is a decent. I've always liked him. I always thought is he slick? A little bit, but he's not. I don't see him as dirty. Like that's not the vibe that I get from him. I don't.
Well, because the thing about Gaetz was it is disappointing that he is such a, I hate to say scummy, but yet everyone basically has had the same sentiment about him. So I have not met him. I generally don't like to be judgy like that, but it is unfortunate that he has that reputation because he was taking stands on things and speaking up to his own party in a way made me feel like that's what we need to see. And so it is somewhat like regrettable that he's so douchey. And
that's why I want to point out Aaron Dimmock. And the reason why I want to point him out is because he challenged Gaetz in a primary. And I will tell you that even in...
Oh, you mean last time he ran? This guy
challenged correct. Gaetz? Just this previous election cycle.
How'd he do?
He did okay. He got 27%. But keep in mind, Gaetz is a very popular representative.
No, I was going to say that's actually the fact that he got double digits is actually really good.
And the other thing that I will mention is that were there a few of the don't run against our own people? Yes.
They must hate him then.
There is no comparison. There is no comparison.
So why does he not have a better chance than Petronis? Like, that's what I understand. If he
you know what? I look at it as who really stood out. Now, the point I was making is that in the Democratic Party, you do not challenge no matter. Remember,
oh, God, no.
Even somebody as disgusting and criminal as Debbie Wasserman Schultz, you do not primary sitting incumbents in the Democratic Party. Hence why Nancy Pelosi's walking around Congress with a walker right now.
For the love of all that is holy. I honestly just put up a friggin' hospice sign on the top of the dome and be done with it.
I am convinced at this point, because I think we've both agreed that the main reason that she's still in Congress right now is because her nephew is going to run for president.
Gavin Newsom thing.
And so she wants to make sure that she's sinking her hooks into as many people as she can to make sure that he remains the front runner. Okay, fine. But it is not going to surprise me if she passes away in the next 4 years.
No, that won't surprise me. But at the end of the day, as long as she is bringing in money, she can do whatever she wants. That's the thing. As long as she's the key rainmaker, which she is, then she does whatever she wants. Which
she represents one of the wealthiest districts in the whole country. She represents Pacific Heights, San Francisco. So if you guys know anything about that area, it's not surprising. So,
I mean, yeah, I don't see her. I don't see it, and of course we know that she wants to bequeath her seat. She's one of those that actually believes that they should determine their successor. Like it's a friggin' monarchy. So she actually would like to bequeath her seat to her daughter. As someone who finds that just repulsive, even if her daughter is qualified and is a great human being, which somehow I just can't wrap my head around. The whole concept of that is so grotesque to me.
The idea that
we have that here, by the way, people need to know that we have that here. Our local Congress people absolutely 100% feel entitled to determine their successor if and when they step down, or even if they're not even able to make their own votes because they're sick.
Now, I will tell you that one of the questions that was asked, like I said, the biggest issue I had in this room is that there is a heavy dose of social conservatism that is of the extreme degree.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about like a handful of church ladies that went up there, and the first question off the bat, listen, I understand.
Abortion.
Listen, I understand that they're pro-life. I'm not going to hold that against them. But Jen, they are anti-marijuana. Like they are. This is an evil drug. And
remember when I told you I bumped into what's his name? I'm not going to say his name. The guy who's the part of the Republican club down here, and I bumped into him at the polls, and I was with Graham, and Graham's going in to vote, and of course Graham knows who I am and knows what I'm about. And this guy goes on to a whole rant about the amendment and how the last thing we need is more people, more dope heads, and it's a gateway drug. And he went into this whole thing with my 18-year-old who has grown up in a house with me, who just looked at me and was just like, oh, okay. But yeah, that is their line.
And Gaetz is also free, cannabis. And like I said, now granted, that's
also generational. I hate to say
it is. And they were definitely playing to the crowd. There's no two ways about it. And remember, I'm not in a Republican event in Pensacola. I'm in a Republican event in Niceville, Florida.
Right.
That is a completely different type of environment. We are right next to Eglin Air Force Base. This is a heavily military retirement area, and these people go to church all the time.
Did you let anyone know that you happen to be a registered Democrat and that you've been affiliated with Democrats?
I made some very nice connections in the room. In fact, I made a big connection with one of Dimmock's guys, one of Patronus's guys. This guy Craig, who works for Patronus.
Did you ask anyone if they want to come on the show?
Absolutely. And I'm going to message them. I'll ask them to come on.
I'd love to have those candidates on. That would be
great.
If
I ask Craig, if I'd say, listen, I'd like to have Jimmy on the podcast, he might do it. And the one thing that Dimmock said is that, listen, I'd love to do it, but, it had more to do with the scheduling circumstance. I said, listen, if we can set it up where it's accommodating, of course, that's the goal. Because
and to be clear, if this seat were somehow a viable seat for anyone else but a Republican to win, then we would be. And we platformed Rebecca Jones, who I of course now have come to find out is a little on the shifty side. But so we would be, we're not just specifically going out of our way to platform Republicans, but it's for a Republican seat. And
but one of the men in that room is going to be my congressional representative. And you know what? Extremely more welcoming than anything you will ever see. But again, Wasserman Schultz is of a particularly horrific level of depravity that I don't think is prevalent across the board. But with that said, it is considered sacrilege to primary a sitting Democrat. It is not allowed. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why the party sucks.
Grudge.
They do.
It's very clear they hold a grudge.
I even said to Dimmock's guy who was in commercial real estate, we had a great conversation. There was that real connection there. And I said, because he works for the Republican Party. And I said, there is no one is entitled to any federal seat. This is insanity that they think that. And he said, it is the people's house.
Yeah. I know. I've said that many times when people have given me the stink eye and say, well, that's Debbie's seat. And I would say, well, no, I know her ass has been in it long enough. You think it's her seat, but it actually belongs to the people of the district. But that's okay.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you,
and
Phil.
Yes, being anti-weed is one of the stupidest positions you can. I even said that to Dimmock Sky. And I understand that Dimmock didn't raise his hand, but I even said, Dimmock Sky agreed with me. And I just said, if you're anti-cannabis at this point, you're just a schmuck. Okay.
Well, I would suggest that at this point, the people that are anti-cannabis are just supporting their team, whether it's their religious team
100%.
or their political team, because it really isn't logical. So it really only is for people who are just so positioned on their team. And that really is not a majority of people, fortunately, for us.
No, I mean, look, the room was predominantly boomer-aged Southern,
Right.
Methodist. I mean, Southern Baptist.
That's an age and area thing. But like,
100%.
when you go to, and the truth is, it is also the case at the young Republicans down here in Broward when we went, there's definitely a very large, anti-choice contingency.
Of course.
But that tends to be people that go to the clubs. When it comes to actual voters,
Correct.
A very large amount of people that vote Republican are more libertarian. So I do think that you have a different crowd that goes to the clubs than is representative of the majority of Republican voters.
I couldn't agree more. I think that 100% is emblematic of exactly what the group is all about. I think that they are compared to the Democratic clubs, these are much nicer, welcoming people.
Oh my God.
1,000%.
Well, okay. And also we have to, again, bring in the location aspect, because the people up where you are nicer than the people are down here just in general.
That's true too. I'll give you that one. It's a different dynamic. They don't care if you're a Democrat. Like that doesn't.
No, they never did when I went. They were nicer to me. And let me be clear, people, when I was running, the people in the Republican clubs were always way nicer to me than the people in the Democrat clubs. Always.
Yeah. And this is guys, this is coming from this is one of the reddest districts in the whole country. This is a +20 R district. So this is not some run-of-the-mill, swing district of any kind. This is hard red, and it will remain red for generations to come. And they could have whatever flippant attitude they want, like a lot of the Broward Democrats do. I don't know how much longer that's going to last, but that's neither here nor there. My point is that they are not necessarily going to agree with you, but they welcome you to be there.
Yeah.
If I was a Republican walking into a Democratic club and they knew I was a Republican, there would be a number of people in that room who would tell me to get lost.
Yes, they would ask me to leave.
You don't belong here.
Absolutely.
And that's why I do believe deep down the Democrats psychologically see themselves as the JV and the Republicans are the varsity. I do think that there is that element.
Well, they have definitely transitioned over to what I would refer to as new Coke, which somebody who remembers when that happened, we neither asked for it nor did we want it.
I would definitely say that when Merck got up on his high horse and started talking about how, when me and my friends used to smoke weed back in the day, it's like, what? So you're anti-weed, you refer to your friends smoking weed back in the day, and he's like, but the weed is so much worse now. It's so much more potent. I'm like, where do
that's better, dude? Who wants less potent weed?
Seriously, where is he pulling this shit from? That's what I want to know. And I don't know. I said to Dimmock Sky, and then I said to my friend John, who was there, who's a friend of Allie, who I mentioned to you about. And I said, I have never seen a wannabe politician, bury himself so badly in such a short period of time. Out of 10 candidates, if he clears the top 7, I'll be surprised. The only reason he might do decent is because he's got money. Now, in terms of who do I think is Patronus's top competition, when you get right down to it, I'm going to have to say it's Joel Rudman. This is his competition. So Rudman,
I vote against him merely for the stethoscope.
So Rudman is actually, and Rudman is likely going to be his toughest competition because Rudman is actually a state House representative in Tallahassee. So he's got credentials. He's actually a rep, and he is he's a doctor.
And Petronis is what?
He's the CFO of the entire state.
So that's credential too.
I agree. I'm just saying in terms of, is there actual competition?
Although that's not necessarily a popular, like people don't know that person, like you know who your representative is necessarily.